But yeah, an interesting case for why these platforms are lying to us. Like, they have no idea what's happening, even when we're using a third-party attribution tool. So we're going to start off with, and we've actually spoken about this account previously. Once it loads here. And I'm going to go over what I've already covered, but we're going to talk about a time period where this business experienced a downturn in their business because Facebook had a restriction happen. So we were basically without Facebook for a month or so. And during that time, some interesting things happened. So it's worthwhile sharing, and then sharing what's happened since and what we've done on Facebook in that time since all this happened. So I'm looking at June 1 to 25th, which is prior to the restriction that happened on Meta, and fairly even results across the board. We had basically a 50-50 split between Google and Facebook in terms of budget, and our ROAS was leaning in the direction of Google primarily. It was, you can see here on my screen, it might be a little small, but a 3.37 triple whale attributed ROAS for first click, compared to a 1.21 for Facebook. Now, July is where we lost the account, lost Meta. And you can see here, when we look at July 1 to 25th, so the same time period, but the next month, Google budget had to increase because that was really our only traffic source at the time. We tried to spend some on Pinterest and TikTok, but we were just getting those platforms updated and up to speed. But you can see that that 3.37 ROAS that Google had dropped down to a 0.68 ROAS when nothing else happened. The only factor that changed month over month was a loss of Meta and a loss of top of funnel traffic, essentially. Meta bounced back the following month. So we'll take a look at August 1 to 25. And we started to lean a little bit more heavily on Meta once that was back up and running. But again, same relative discrepancy in ROAS. We can see Facebook stayed at about 0.68, but Google jumped up to a 1.42. And really, again, all that happened during this 3-month time period is we had Meta, we lost Meta, and then Meta picked back up again. And an interesting thing to look at too in that time period is what happened to the revenue. So we're looking at this first month here. So prior to the Meta issue, had about 24, just about 25K in online store revenue that month, not including Facebook and Instagram Shop. In July, when Meta was offline, that 25K was non-existent. They actually lost money on their online store in that time period. Again, the only thing that changed was we removed about 3K of spend from Meta, and we're forced to reallocate it to Google. Back up into August, that negative 3K bounced back to 25. That's when Meta came back online. And then this month, we've actually started to scale Meta pretty heavily. And where we were averaging about 25K a month previously, in the first 10 days of September, we're already at 33K. And that's basically, we'll take a look at the spend discrepancy in the spend allocation in September so far. This loads. So we can see that we're really heavily pushing into Meta now, just about $4,500 spent month to date, $930 spent on Google. And again, Google is taking basically all of the credit for it. 6.5 ROAS on platform and a 1.4 on Meta.
This is hilarious. This is so crazy to me. Nick, can you go over the orders here too? Like how many orders in the first week of just order numbers, because that's how Sorable's going to look at it. So we had 56 total orders for so far in September. And can you do the same time period in August?
Yep. First 10 days of August, we had 16.
16 to 56, was it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So 40 additional orders, and we've spent, so we're at 4,500 on this month. First 10 days of August, we'd spent 27. So we're up about $2,000.
Yeah. So we doubled in the first 10 days, and wow, and got 40
sales are following.
Orders. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're on the right path. Like, this is looking much, much better.
Yeah.
Better.
I think this is the general direction. And this is a very particular case. I don't think this is going to be the case for every single client out there to say, just throw all your money at Meta. This is a luxury women's clothing brand with really high ticket products.
Yeah, so, and their AOV pretty well holds. That's another thing I think you should talk about. Like, can you go back into their Shopify and just show how their AOV, and if it has fluctuated?
It is changing a little bit.
Maybe like from $700 to $500, maybe $200. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's still high.
Yeah, it's still good. And their customer return rate is still higher than what we want. So that's another factor that goes into the overall strategy that we're pushing on Meta, which is this L1, L2, L3 strategy, forcing the platform to go after new customers, essentially. If you're, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just interrupting you. I was just going to say, can we look at new customer growth too? There's a report here. Yeah.
I'll just jump into customers here real quick. But that, I was just saying, one factor that you'll need to look at before introducing this strategy is what your customer return rate is. If your customer return rate is really healthy, like theirs is almost 60, you can easily push more new customers, because you can, even without knowing your actual LTV numbers, you can assume that the LTV is going to be pretty high or higher than your AOV. If you were working with like a 5% customer return rate, you'd have to watch this really closely and watch how much you're spending per new customer. That would be a larger KPI in that case.
Yeah, I think this is a unique.
Yeah, very unique situation. 32 new customers generated in the first 10 days of September. And in August, so about the same.
Interesting. So we have return customers.
Yeah.
Now.
A higher number of returning customers. And AOV is decreasing.
Did you launch a remarketing campaign recently? Or you're doing some remarketing on?
Barely. Really not much. It's all, the most remarketing we do is website visitors in the last 30 days, but we are excluding past purchasers from that list. This could be where they're trickling in from, though. Let me just jump to month to date. So these campaigns are getting a lot. Top of funnel, evergreen, interest, and bestsellers.
Right.
And these are not excluding past purchasers, I don't believe. Yeah, so they're just excluding all, the total list of all buyers up until August, not including the most recent buyers.
Okay.
So they could be returning relatively quickly to make a secondary purchase.
Which is weird, because I thought we figured out it was like month 5 that it looked like they were back. Maybe like the majority, but maybe it's happening more and more. Oh yeah, look, July is 11% in their second month. Like in
yeah, that's pretty high actually.
That's high. So maybe this is going to be a trend where closer to July. When did we launch fall? There was a little
mid-August.
Yeah. Interesting.
So that's probably having a pretty significant impact on that, is the fact that people may have purchased in July and then we launched. They probably got the 15% discount code in July and then saw the new collection drop in August.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. But yeah, an interesting case for why these platforms are lying to us. Like they have no idea what's happening, even when we're using a third-party attribution tool like Triple Whale, which isn't the best of what's out there, but it's pretty good and it should be tracking better than the platforms themselves. It's still not accurate. It's still attributing more sales to Google, and it really doesn't matter what attribution model we check. First click seems to be the closest to accurate, but they're really all over the place no matter what. So just, yeah, interesting.
And if we would have, could you imagine if we believed this data and Triple Whale was like, let's put our money into Google because that's got the better return. We would have killed this company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Killed this company.
Like you would have seen this, right? Like it would have been what happened in July.
Exactly. They would have been $3,000. They're $3,000 negative. Like we would have put them in the hole. Wild.
Yeah, it's yeah, if you didn't know, or if you were just looking at on platform ROAS, which is what everybody wants to look at, right? Then you'd be moving in the complete opposite direction. Regardless if you're looking at in-app metrics or in secondary attribution tools. But yeah, pretty cool. Interesting stuff.
I work with a select amount of clients now because unless I'm measuring outside of the platform, I can't work with clients. It's because, you know, they'll fire me when the company loses money. I've never been fired where ROAS looks like one, but then the client's 10xing and minting money. I've never been fired off of that. I'll get